Look, I've seen some weird stuff in my 15 years as an archaeologist. I've carbon-dated rocks that somehow predated the universe, translated alien hieroglyphs that were just elaborate recipes for soup, and once spent 6 months on a dig that turned out to be a very old parking garage. But nothing, and I mean nothing, prepared me for the sheer pretentiousness of the ancient path of ancestors. My name is Marcus Webb, and I was currently standing on the planet Zelthar Prime, watching a 7-foot-tall purple alien named Vex Thor perform what could only be described as interpretive dance before stepping onto what looked like a really fancy sidewalk. This was supposed to be educational. This was supposed to broaden my understanding of galactic culture. This was supposed to be a mandatory field trip that I absolutely could not skip unless I wanted my research funding pulled. Behold, Vex Thor announced in that annoying way that people say behold when they want you to know they think they're better than you, the most sacred archaeological site in the known universe. I beheld. It was a path, a glowing, shimmering path that stretched about 100 meters across a plaza. Sure, but still just a path. Granted, it was doing some trippy things with light and space, kind of folding in on itself in ways that made my eyes hurt. But I'd seen stranger things at raves in my college days. It's very shiny, I offered, because apparently that was the wrong thing to say based on the horrified gasps from the crowd of alien onlookers. Vex Thor's eye stalks quivered with indignation. The Craxians were a species that had perfected the art of looking offended, which was impressive considering they had exoskeletons and technically no facial expressions. Shiny? Shiny? This path has existed for over 3 billion years, human. When a being walks upon it, the path transforms, revealing the very essence of their species' soul, their place in the cosmic order, their fundamental nature encoded in the universe itself. So it's a personality test for your feet, got it. Vex Thor made a sound like a cat choking on a hairball, which in Craxian meant I was a cultural Philistine. He turned back to the path, raised his 4 arms in what I assumed was a spiritually significant gesture, and stepped forward. The moment his foot touched the glowing surface, the path erupted into motion. It twisted, spiraled, formed intricate geometric patterns that looked like someone had given Escher a kaleidoscope and a deadline. Colors I was pretty sure didn't exist in normal space rippled outward from his steps. It was, admittedly, impressive in a trying way too hard kind of way. The crowd oohed and ahed. Someone was taking notes. Another alien was literally weeping with joy. I checked my watch. When Vex Thor finished his sacred walk, looking insufferably smug, he gestured to the path. You see? The Craxian people create complexity, beauty, order from chaos. Our very footsteps reshape reality itself. This is why we are the natural philosophers of the galaxy. Right, I said. And I'm guessing every species has their own special thing? A small alien that looked like a nervous mushroom with too many eyes scurried forward. This was Plimbok, some kind of administrator for the site. His species, the Fremen, apparently always looked like they were about to be fired, which made them perfect for bureaucratic positions. Oh yes, every species unique, very special, Plimbok chittered. The Glorpians make it spiral like a helix. The Zenthari cause fractal fragmentation. The Threen induce temporal echoes. Each walking reveals cosmic truth. Very sacred, very regulated, very many rules. I'm sensing a butt coming. Humans not evaluated yet. Humans cannot walk. Humans must wait for committee approval. Please do not walk on path. Very important, humans do not walk on path. Signs everywhere say do not walk on path if you are human. I looked around. There were indeed signs, a lot of signs. In about 40 different languages, including English, all basically saying, humans, keep off the cosmic grass. How long's the wait for approval? I asked. Plimbok's eyes somehow managed to look even more anxious. Approximately 847 years, give or take a century. Forms must be filed in triplicate. Of course they did. Turned out the ancient path wasn't just sacred, it was also the most over-regulated tourist attraction in the galaxy. Plimbok, bless his nervous little spores, spent the next hour explaining the bureaucratic nightmare that surrounded a simple walk. You see, he said, pulling up a holographic display that showed a flowchart so complex it could have doubled as a map of the universe. First, the Species Evaluation Committee must convene. Then the Cosmic Significance Subcommittee reviews their findings. Then the Transformation Analysis Board runs simulations. Then the Sacred Heritage Protection League weighs in on cultural impact. Then... How many committees are we talking about here? 47 primary committees, 312 subcommittees, and one very grumpy oversight council that meets only during leap years on planets with 3 moons. Plimbok pulled up another screen. Current waiting list is 12,000 species. Humans are number 11,998. There are species behind us in line? Yes, the Blobulons applied last week, and the Crystalline Collective just discovered space travel on Tuesday. You're ahead of them. Congratulations. I rubbed my temples. This was why I preferred digging up dead civilizations. They didn't have committee meetings. So what exactly happens with all these different species? Give me examples. Plimbok brightened, apparently happy to discuss the one thing he knew everything about. Oh, wonderful diversity. Yes. The Glorpians, aquatic species. They walk and path becomes like flowing water, spirals into double helix pattern. Very beautiful, very wet somehow, even though path is solid. The Zentheri, mathematical hive minds, they step on path, and it fragments into perfect fractals. Each piece containing whole, very confusing, makes head hurt to look at, too long. Sounds like it? The Threen, time-sensitive species, they cause temporal echoes. Path shows them walking forward and backward simultaneously, very philosophical, very makes you question existence. The Gorphalites, gaseous beings, path becomes mist and vapor, smells like cinnamon for some reason. No one knows why. Every example made the path sound less like a sacred relic and more like a really over-designed piece of art installation at a pretentious museum. But I kept my mouth shut because I was technically here representing Earth's archaeological community, and insulting the galaxy's holiest site probably wouldn't look great on my performance review. What really got me, though, was the attitude. Vexthor had barely stopped reminding me that humans were unproven and potentially too chaotic for path access. He'd suggested multiple times that humanity's disorganized nature would probably cause the path to explode, or break, or start playing elevator music. Your species, he'd said that morning over breakfast that I couldn't eat, because it was made of compressed methane or something, has only been spacefaring for a few centuries. We must be cautious. The path has survived 3 billion years. We cannot risk it on a species that still uses fossil fuels on their home planet. We're working on it, I'd muttered. Are you, though? Now, standing at the edge of the path while Vexthor droned onto a tour group about Craxian cosmic superiority, I was getting increasingly annoyed. There was something about the path that bugged me, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. The way it moved, the patterns it made, they seemed almost mechanical, calculated, like watching a really sophisticated program run rather than witnessing mystical cosmic truth. But what did I know? I was just a human who'd accidentally chosen xenoarchaeology as a career, because regular archaeology on Earth didn't have enough funding and apparently cataloguing alien trash paid better. Remember, Plimbok said nervously, hovering near my elbow like an anxious umbrella, human must not step on path. Very important. Summit is in 3 days. Many council members want to classify humans as too primitive. If human breaks path, humanity never allowed in Galactic Archaeological Society. Very bad. Career over. Possibly executed. Definitely no more grant money. Got it. Keep off the fancy sidewalk. Message received. What could possibly go wrong? Famous last words, right? The next day, Plimbok was giving me the safe tour, which meant walking around the perimeter of the path while staying a good 3 meters back from the edge. Vexthor was on the path itself, performing another one of his ceremonial walks because apparently Craxians needed to attune themselves to the cosmic frequencies daily, which I suspected was just his excuse to show off. This section dates back 2.8 billion years, Plimbok was saying, nervously gesturing at the edges of the path. Original construction, never modified, very stable, unless of course there is an incident, which there will not be, because human is being careful, yes? Very careful, I confirmed, but I wasn't really listening. I was watching the path's transformation patterns as Vexthor walked. There was something off about them. The shifts weren't random or spiritual looking, they were almost algorithmic, like watching a computer process data. Each of Vex Thor's steps triggered a specific sequence, and if you watched carefully, you could almost predict the next transformation before it happened. I moved closer to the edge, squinting at the patterns. There, see that? When his third foot hit the surface, the path always spiraled counterclockwise before fragmenting into that geometric pattern. Always. Every single time. That wasn't mystical cosmic truth. That was programming. Human is getting very close to path, Plimbok observed nervously. Just looking, I said, leaning forward. There were markings along the edge, so faint you could barely see them. They looked almost like control panels, or maybe sensor arrays. I knelt down to get a better look. That's when I saw it. Vex Thor's ceremonial observation equipment, which was basically a fancy tripod with some scanning devices, sitting right at the edge of the path. Right where I was about to put my hand, right where anyone with common sense would have moved it after finishing their measurements. Hey, Vex Thor, you left your... My hand hit the tripod. The tripod tipped. I lurched forward to catch it. My foot, searching for purchase, found the path. Time did that thing where it slows down right before something catastrophic happens, giving you just enough time to think, well, this is it. This is how I die, tripping over alien equipment and breaking the universe's most sacred sidewalk. Plimbok screamed. Alarms started blaring. Vex Thor spun around, his eye stalks extending to their maximum length in horror. Somewhere in the distance, I heard what sounded like 100 bureaucrats fainting simultaneously. The path, which had been doing its usual kaleidoscopic reality-bending dance beneath Vex Thor's feet, went completely still. Not just still, but frozen, like someone had hit pause on existence itself. Every shimmering pattern, every fractal transformation, every cosmic truth or whatever just stopped. Complete silence. Even the alarms seemed confused and shut off. Then something happened that, according to the historical records I'd later be forced to review about 17,000 times, had never happened in 3 billion years of recorded history. The path straightened, not metaphorically straightened, literally straightened. Every curve, every artistic twist, every pretentious cosmic flourish just smoothed out into a perfectly flat, perfectly straight, perfectly practical-looking surface that ran from one end of the plaza to the other. It looked less like a sacred relic and more like someone had just installed really nice concrete. Huh, I said. Because what else do you say when you accidentally transform the universe's holiest site into a sidewalk? Plimbok fainted. He hit the ground with a soft thump, his eyes rolling back in his head. Vex Thor was making a sound I'd never heard before, somewhere between a kettle whistling and someone strangling a clarinet. His eye stalks were doing things that probably violated several laws of biology. I stepped off the path carefully. The path remained straight, perfectly, efficiently, almost mockingly straight. So, I said to no one in particular, I'm guessing this is bad? The second round of alarms started, and these ones sounded expensive. Turns out, when you accidentally transform the galaxy's most sacred archaeological site, you get a lot of attention. Most of it involves armed guards and rooms without windows. The holding cell wasn't terrible. It had a bed, a toilet-adjacent device that I was afraid to use, and a one-way window that I suspected led to a room full of very angry aliens, deciding whether to execute me or just exile me to a planet made entirely of carnivorous plants. I'd been there for 6 hours when the door finally opened. The alien who entered looked like someone had taken a praying mantis, made it blue, given it 8 legs, and put glasses on it. This was Dr. Quilmara, a Threen scientist who I'd later learn was one of the few people in the galaxy who thought the path was overrated. Marcus Webb, she said, settling into a chair with the kind of calculated grace that made me think she could probably kill me 17 different ways. You have created quite the situation. Look, it was an accident. I tripped over Vex Thor's equipment. Oh, I believe you. I reviewed the security footage. Very clumsy. Very human. She pulled up a holographic display. What interests me is what happened after you stepped on the path. Tell me, Mr. Webb, what is your previous occupation? I was a civil engineer before I got into archaeology. Roads, bridges, infrastructure. Why? Her antennae twitched in what might have been excitement. Because you have solved a 3-billion-year-old mystery and caused 47 simultaneous existential crises among the galaxy's foremost scholars. What now? Dr. Quilmara pulled up an image of the path, now perfectly straight, with measurement data scrolling beside it. The path did not just respond to you, Mr. Webb. It optimized itself. Every other species that walks the path causes it to become more complex, more artistic, more chaotic. You made it efficient. Do you understand how unprecedented this is? I mean, it does look better now, more practical. You could actually use it to get somewhere instead of just walking in circles while it does light shows. Exactly. Dr. Quilmara leaned forward. We ran tests. The path scanned your mind when you stepped on it, just as it does with every species. But instead of expressing your species' cosmic nature through artistic transformation, it apparently decided that after billions of years of pretentious displays, it was time to just be a good sidewalk. I blinked. You're saying the path looked at human thinking and went, "Finally, someone practical?" In essence, yes. We believe the path analyzed your background in infrastructure, your tendency to see inefficiency in systems, your species' general approach to problem-solving, which is apparently to ask, but does it work? Rather than, but is it beautiful? Okay, but can't you just have someone else walk on it and change it back? Dr. Quilmara's expression, if I was reading Threen body language correctly, suggested I'd just asked something very stupid. We tried. Vexthor walked it 17 times. The Glorpian ambassador took a turn. We even brought in a Zenthari hive priest. The path did not respond. It appears to be quite satisfied being straight. You're telling me I broke the cosmic sidewalk by making it better? You broke the cosmic sidewalk by making it a sidewalk. That's when things got weirder. Dr. Quilmara showed me data from around the galaxy. Other ancient paths, identical structures on 17 different worlds, were starting to straighten too. Just slightly at first, little corrections here and there, but enough to cause panic among the archaeological community. They're networked, I said, staring at the data. They're communicating with each other. That's our hypothesis, and it gets more interesting. She pulled up a new display showing the straightened path. We've discovered features that were previously hidden by all the transformations. Markings, symbols, what appear to be station indicators. I leaned closer. Those weren't just artistic flourishes on the edge of the path. They were signs, instructions, diagrams that looked suspiciously like transit maps. This isn't a sacred relic, I said slowly. This is infrastructure. That, Dr. Quilmara said with what might have been satisfaction, is what I have been saying for 30 years. Welcome to the Heretic Club. Population 2. Outside the cell, I could hear shouting. Something about cultural contamination and the end of civilization as they knew it. That would be Vexthor then. So what happens now? I asked. Now? Now we have an emergency galactic summit where you get to explain to several thousand very angry aliens that their most sacred spiritual site is actually an ancient subway system. She paused. I suggest you prepare a very good presentation. I'm an archaeologist, not a motivational speaker. Then I suggest you learn quickly. The summit is tomorrow morning. Great. Just great. The Grand Council chamber was designed to be intimidating, and it succeeded. Thousands of aliens from hundreds of species packed into a space that seemed to defy normal geometry. All of them staring at me like I'd just told them their religious texts were actually furniture assembly instructions. Which, given what I was about to present, wasn't that far off. I stood at the center podium, a holographic display floating in front of me, trying not to think about the fact that my career, humanity's reputation, and possibly my continued existence depended on the next 20 minutes. Honorable members of the Galactic Council, I began. I'm here to discuss what happened when I stepped on the ancient path. But first, I need you to consider something. What if everything you believed about the paths was wrong? The room erupted in angry chittering, buzzing, and what I assumed were incredibly rude gestures in several languages. I didn't speak. Vexthor was in the front row, his eye stalks vibrating with rage. Heresy! He shouted. This human seeks to destroy billions of years of cultural heritage with his primitive materialism. Let him speak, Dr. Quilmara said from her seat. She'd cleaned up nice for the summit, which meant she'd added a second pair of glasses. The data is compelling. I pulled up my first slide. A comparison of the path's transformations across species. Every species that walks the path causes it to transform in increasingly complex ways. Fractals, spirals, temporal echoes. Beautiful, yes, but also completely impractical. The path stretches 100 meters, but with all the transformations, it takes some species 20 minutes to walk it. Because they are communing with the cosmic truth, someone shouted. Or, I said, because the path was trying to communicate with them and they weren't understanding the message. That got their attention. I pulled up the next slide. My analysis of the transformation patterns. Look at these sequences. They're not random. They're systematic, algorithmic, like a computer trying different outputs to get a response. The path wasn't expressing your cosmic nature. It was trying to find someone who understood it was a machine. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. I pressed on. When I stepped on the path, it scanned my mind and found something it had been searching for. Someone who looked at it and saw infrastructure, not art. Someone who understood that sometimes the point isn't to be profound, it's to get from point A to point B. I showed them the images of the straightened path, the newly visible markings, the symbols that clearly indicated stations and connections. These paths aren't sacred relics, they're transit systems. Ancient, incredibly advanced transit systems built by a civilization that actually wanted them to be used, not worshipped. Preposterous! Vexthor was on his feet, all four arms gesticulating wildly. The paths are billions of years old. They are fundamental to our understanding of the universe. They're billions of years old, I agreed, and they've been sitting here waiting for someone to just use them like the tools they were meant to be. Dr. Quilmara stood, her display showing data that supported my theory. Mr. Webb's hypothesis is consistent with our findings. The straightened path has revealed technology we've never seen before. Transit nodes, energy conduits, what appears to be an instantaneous transportation network spanning the galaxy. You're saying, a council member asked slowly, that we've been performing religious ceremonies on an ancient subway. Not just any subway, I said, the most advanced transportation system ever created. And it's been dormant because everyone was too busy treating it like art to press the start button. I pulled up my final piece of evidence, the network map that had appeared after the path straightened, connecting lines between worlds, station markers, route designations. It was all there, hidden under billions of years of spiritual significance. The ancient civilization that built this didn't leave it as a mystery, I said. They left it as a gift, a practical, functional gift, and we've been so busy trying to find deep meaning in it that we miss the obvious answer. Sometimes infrastructure is just infrastructure. The chamber fell silent. Vexthor sat down slowly, his eye stalks drooping. Around the room, I could see aliens processing this information, their worldviews cracking in real time. There is one way to know for certain, Dr. Quilmara said. She looked at me. Mr. Webb has discovered what appear to be control interfaces along the path's edge, symbols that, when properly understood, might activate additional features. You mean buttons, I said. They're buttons. If you prefer. A council elder, some kind of crystalline being that refracted light in headache-inducing ways, spoke up. Do we want to know the truth? If we activate these systems, we cannot go back to the old understanding. I looked around the chamber at thousands of aliens, clinging to billions of years of tradition. Then I thought about the fact that this technology could connect the entire galaxy, could revolutionize transportation, could make the universe smaller and more accessible. Sometimes, I said, the truth is better than the mystery, even if it's less poetic. I walked over to the display, found the symbol that my engineering brain recognized as an obvious power button, and pressed it. The chamber's holographic display exploded into light as the entire network came online, showing transportation routes, station locations, and system diagnostics in a language that seemed to translate itself into every species' native tongue as we watched. Somewhere in the chamber, Vexthor made a sound like a deflating balloon. "It's a subway," he whispered. "I've dedicated my entire career to studying a subway system." "An incredibly advanced subway system," Dr. Quilmara offered helpfully. The vote took 3 hours. In the end, the council decided to accept reality over mysticism by a margin of 52%. The tourism board was devastated. The transit authority requested an immediate budget increase. Humanity's status as too primitive was officially revised to annoyingly practical. 3 months later, I found myself standing in an office that technically didn't exist until a human had accidentally created the need for it. The sign on the door read, "Galactic Transit Authority" in 47 languages, and underneath, in smaller letters, "Director Marcus Webb, because apparently we're doing this now." The job wasn't what I'd imagined when I got into archaeology. Instead of digging up ancient civilizations, I was managing the resurrection of one. The paths, all 17 of them across the galaxy, were now fully operational. Turned out when you stopped treating them like temples and started treating them like transportation, they worked beautifully. Instantaneous travel between worlds, perfect safety record, and a user interface that even the Blobulons could figure out. Plimbok was my assistant now, which made sense given his obsessive knowledge of every path regulation ever written. We'd adapted most of them for actual transit use, which mainly involved deleting the words sacred and ceremonial from about 10,000 documents. "Director Webb," Plimbok said, scurrying into my office with a datapad. "We have complaint from Station 7. The Glorpians are saying the path lacks spiritual significance now that it functions primarily as commuter transport. Tell them they can perform their spiritual ceremonies at home and use the path to get there faster," I said, reviewing the day's transit schedules. Peak hours were getting ridiculous. Who knew the galaxy had a rush hour? The best part was Vexthor. After his existential crisis wore off, he'd actually come around. Turned out he'd always thought the ceremonies were excessive, but had been too invested in his academic reputation to admit it. Now he worked as our chief historian, documenting the path's actual purpose and helping translate the ancient civilization's maintenance logs. He walked in just then, looking far less pretentious without the ceremonial robes. "Marcus, you need to see this. We found something in the path's central database." "Good something, or world-ending something? Because my day's been pretty good so far, and I'd like to keep it that way." "Good something. Possibly hilarious something." He pulled up a holographic document. "It's the original instruction manual for the Path Network." I leaned forward. The text was dense, full of technical specifications and operational guidelines. But there, in the introduction, translated into modern Standard Galactic, was a section titled Message to Future Users. I read it out loud. "We, the architects of the path, leave this transportation network for the civilizations that will follow. We have designed it to be intuitive, efficient, and accessible to all forms of life. Please use the paths as intended, as a practical means of connecting distant worlds and facilitating galactic unity. Do not overthink this. They are very nice roads. Just walk on them. There is a user manual in the system database. We have made the interface extremely simple. Even a child of our species could operate it. Seriously, just press the obvious buttons. We worked hard on making them obvious." There was a pause while we all processed this. "They left an instruction manual," Vexthor said quietly. "They explicitly said not to overthink it," Dr. Quilmara added. She'd joined the Transit Authority as Chief of Technology, mostly because she enjoyed proving she'd been right all along. "They made the buttons obvious," I said, starting to laugh. "We spent 3 billion years," Vexthor said, "performing elaborate ceremonies on a transit system that came with instructions that said, 'Please just use this like a normal road.'" Plimbok was already fainting. He'd gotten better at it over the months, barely made a sound when he hit the floor anymore. I looked out my office window at the nearest path station. Aliens from a dozen species were using it for their morning commute, complaining about delays and crowding. Treating this 3-billion-year-old marvel of ancient technology exactly the way it was meant to be treated, like public transportation. "You know what the really funny part is?" I said. "We probably would have figured this out centuries ago if anyone had just bothered to look for the instruction manual. But That would have been too simple, Dr. Quillmara said. Too practical, Vex Thor agreed. Too human, I finished. My communicator blinked. Another complaint, this time about someone trying to perform a blessing ritual during rush hour and backing up traffic for 3 systems. I sighed and stood up. Being the director of an ancient alien subway system that the galaxy had spent billions of years worshipping wasn't the career path I'd planned. But someone had to do it. And hey, at least the commute was great. Outside my window, the path hummed with activity, perfectly straight, perfectly